After that, we had a brief history of forensic science. We had these famous people who had played a very major role in completing forensic science as a field. So it started from St. Thomas the Doubter. It's a skeptic, a skeptical character who used to doubt everything. So if you say that you saw the person doing some stealing thing, I won't believe that if I'm the doubter. I will need to see it myself. I will go with the proofs. If he was there, I should find the footprint of the person. So the doubters started this whole foundation of forensic science where I will be doubting every other thing. This is what forensic analysts do. If police has come to you and he has said that we feel that this person could be the culprit, we can't agree with that. We have to do the tests again. We have to do all the scientific tests, blood tests, chemical tests, viscera tests, all the tests to believe what the other person is saying. So that was St. Thomas. And then we have the very famous Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. A lot of people enter forensic science because they want to become the next Sherlock Holmes. So we all would have seen Sherlock Holmes where he works as a detective. He helps LEA, the law enforcement agencies, in solving crime cases. So the next foundation was built by Sir Arthur, who gave us Sherlock Holmes. Then gradually people started using science in forensic science. We had Matthew Orfila, who had a brief work in toxicology. Toxicology is the study of toxic materials like poison. So if I have found poison inside someone's body, I have to prove that that person died because of poison and not because of some other thing. There could be instances when someone uh, administers poison into other person and then hangs them. So we have to prove whether the person died because of hanging or whether he died because of poison. That field comes into toxicology. Then we had anthropometry. So in this order, different fields were introduced to forensic science. We had different disciplines added. Anthropometry is the study of human remains, human skull remains. There have been cases when we found skull, femur, different bones, parts, and then we prove the age of the dead person, and we go through that whole analysis. So from that, anthropometry came, and the person involved, major person involved was Alphonse Bertillon. And then we had fingerprinting, which is massively used nowadays, which was given by Francis Galton. So he initially we used to rely on body measurements. We used to rely on if a person height matches to other person. For example, if you have found a dead body and you go with the measurements, you go with the body measurements. You go that this person is this much, weighs this much, his height is this much, then who would be the probable person? Which is not reliable because there could be people with the same weight, there could be people with the same height. You cannot rely on body measurements all the time. So at that time, Galton proposed that instead of going with body measurements, which are not unique, we can go with fingerprinting because fingerprints are unique, at least to some extent. They are unique, and we should be relying more on fingerprinting when we want to prove the individuality of. Then we had blood stain identification. You found a stain of blood, you do DNA analysis, find what is the blood group. If you know that a death has happened in a particular house and there are three people in the house residing, and the blood group of the blood stain is O positive, then we can think that, yeah, this person is O positive, so he could be the culprit. He could be the culprit. So that was given by Leon Lattice. And then we had document examination. The next field which was evolved was document examination, where we examine the documents, signatures, thumbprints. You do forged signatures, so how to prove that particular signature is forged. All that comes under document examination, and its father was Albert Ornstein. Then FBI, its branch was established first by Hoover. He realized that we need a different investigative agency which works around things. And then we had the very famous Locard's exchange principle. It's really famous. It's really important in terms of forensic science. The whole foundation of forensic science is built on exchange principle. So I'll be trying to talk more about exchange principles so that it can help us ahead. So exchange principle says that whenever there has been a contact between two things. It could be a person and a materialistic thing. It could be two people. It could be two materials. It could be a person and a soil. It could be anything. Whenever there is a contact between two things, there will be an exchange of trace evidence. By that I mean, if I'm touching my phone, there will be my fingerprints on the phone. And if the temper is broken, I'll get some glass particles on my hand. That's exchange. Whenever you come in contact with something, you will exchange. If you open a door, you'll have your fingerprints over there, and from the door you may get some kind of materials. There will be at least some, maybe some oily particles. There has to be something. So there is always an exchange between two things, and whenever we try to analyze a case, we always go with what things has been exchanged by the culprit and the scene of crime. Scene of crime is the place where the crime was committed, where you found the dead body, where you found the stolen, the place where this stealing thing has happened, the place where the theft has happened. So Locard's exchange principle will be really helpful even in forensic botany. Then we have the different disciplines. These are the major disciplines of forensic science. There are many more disciplines that has been introduced nowadays, but the major ones. So if you enter forensic science academically, if you try doing bachelor's of science in forensic science or MSc, you'll have these six options in front of you. So you can already make up your mind with which one you want to go. These six options are the major disciplines, and then these also have some sub-disciplines. So the first one is forensic physics, which is the soil case that I just presented. You walk, you try. Someone has murdered other person, and you found soil particles on the dead body. Where the person was dead, where the whole scene of crime has happened, I can analyze it by the soil particles found on the body. There could be chances that you find a mixture of soil particles which could be unique to places, not characteristics to places. Not every place will have those combination of soils. I can have a characteristic soil like red soil, and I know that in my zone, red soil is found only at place A. Then I can simply uh, find this conclusion that this body might or the crime might have been committed at that A place because it has red soil. So forensic science deals with glasses, soils, fracture. If someone has tried breaking the glass for stealing purpose and he tried breaking the glass, then you can also analyze whether the glass was broken from outside or inside. If it was from inside, then I can think that yeah, someone from the house has done the theft. If it was from outside, then yeah, someone from outside has been there. So every small thing in forensic science plays a major role in finding out who the culprit is. Ballistics is the study of firearms. There are cases, gunshot cases, where a gunshot has been made on a body, a gunshot in the center of the head, a gunshot in the side, a gunshot on head, a gunshot on hand, anywhere. So we need to analyze the gunshot to find out what kind of bullet was used. And with the help of bullet, we can find out what kind of gun firearm was used, and then we can know that okay, in this zone only 5 or 6 people have these firearms, and then there are registration that happen. Every firearm has a serial number, unique serial number. So it indirectly helps you in tracking down the culprit. So ballistics is the study of firearms. Then we have forensic chemistry and toxicology. Toxicology is kind of embedded into forensic chemistry because when you analyze poisons, you do the chemical things. So forensic chemistry is the general chemistry, but forensic toxicology is particularly related to poison. So if you use the principles of chemistry in finding out the culprit of a crime, it becomes forensic chemistry. We do analyze viscera. Viscera are internal organs. So if you have found a poison case and then you need to take out the viscera, you need to do the churning. You need to find out what kind of chemicals are there inside the stomach probably, and then you can find out that that person consumed this kind of toxic material. That's why he's dead. Now, how did he consume that? Did he try attempting suicide? Did he try someone administered this into him? That we need to establish using other principles of science. Then we have document examination. As I said, fingerprints, thumbprints, All these comes under document examination. It's also very important, especially in case of bank, because there might be people who tried forging a signature and then you try to take out some cash, so you can do document examination over there. Then we have computer forensics, which is my specialization zone. So computer forensics deals with computers, which is a trend nowadays. There have been a lot of cyber attacks. The recent Mumbai cyber attack, where the electricity of whole Mumbai zone was gone because of a cyber attack. One computer gone, the whole electricity gone. So that's computer forensics. If someone has tried creating a fake social media account of yours and then tried posting some pictures, indecent pictures, or tried contacting your friends, then forensic experts, computer forensic experts try in navigating that person. We try finding out who tried attempt or who attempted to create your social media profile and who did message to your friends. Viruses, malwares, ransomware attacks, everything comes under computer. Social media analysis, messaging, uh, reviewing people's message so that we can know if they tried sharing some indecent things. For example, you complain that your friend sent you some indecent messages, so we analyze whether that message was actually sent by the friend or not. That all comes under forensic, computer forensic. And so really, I'll say nowadays it's in trend. It has a lot of scope nowadays comparatively, but all the fields are relevant. All the fields are interrelated and relevant. And then we have forensic biology and serology, which is our topic for today. So forensic biology and serology, we'll talk more about it in the coming slides. Serology is a different thing. Biology is a different thing. Serology is a part of biology. When we deal with fluids, we call it serology. So forensic biology involves the examination of blood. Everything that you do in biology, when you use it for finding out the culprit, that comes under forensic biology. So it's nothing different. It's the same thing that you do in biology, but you should know how to present it in court. You should know whether that evidence is relevant or not. That's forensic biology. It involves the examination of blood and other body fluids. Blood involves DNA analysis. Blood involves blood group analysis. Finding out blood group does not help you directly in connecting to the culprit, but it helps you in finding the scope. Because now I know that I just need to find out those people who have O positive blood group. So it kind of helps in finding out the relevant things. Then we have bodily fluids. It involves saliva. It involves semen. It involves every fluid that the body secretes. Blood as blood, I won't say because blood we have taken already separately. Saliva plays a major role in case of hanging. It's really important. It's really interesting. So I like to share it with you all. If a person has been hanged and if a person had tried committing suicide, there are two different. For example, if a person tried committing suicide, in that case, when he hangs himself, he will drool. There will be a flow of saliva through his mouth, which means that person did commit suicide. But if a person was killed, maybe by throttling, maybe by choking, maybe by drowning, if he was killed and then to disguise if that particular person was hanged. So first he was murdered and then he was hanged. In that case, he won't drool. There will be no saliva. So presence of saliva means that the person has committed suicide, while no presence of saliva means no suicide. It might be a case of murder. So fluids are equally important. Sometimes you may get DNA also in saliva. If you found some really important cells, there are different cells in the saliva, including epithelial cells. So if you can find or if you can extract DNA out of it, then a saliva can tell you the person. Then we have hair. So hair are equally important because hair has DNA. Bones also come under biology. It majorly helps you in finding out the age of the person. Then we have insects, which plays a major role in forensic analysis because when a person dies, a lot of insects are there. A lot of insects try using that body as their hub to reproduce. So if you have found insects or moths and you can find out the age of the moth, you will indirectly find out the time when the person died. So if you find that the moth is it at some life cycle stage where it's like 16 months old, then I can conclude that the body is also 16 or more than 16 months old because of the presence of moths. Then plant and animal remains also play a major role. There have been wildlife crimes involving animals. At that time, we used forensic biology to establish that whether it was a pug mark, whether it was a dog who was killed, whether it was a cat who was killed, whether it was a tiger who was killed by using their blood analysis, by doing their blood analysis. And there have been a different things involved with wildlife crime. And then we have plants, which is today's topic, how plants can help you in finding out the culprit. That will be interesting to know. So, using the technology of biology in lab and in the field, the biologists, the people who are involved in forensic biology, we call them forensic biologists. They will collect and analyze biological evidences found on clothing. You can find hair, you can find blood stains on clothing, weapons. Again, you can find blood stains, hair. Imagine that a person was stabbed and you found two different kind of blood groups on the dagger. You found two different kind of blood. It kind of concludes that one would be of the victim, but the other could be of the culprit. So if I find out the DNA analysis, if I do DNA analysis, I can know that out of these suspects, who could be the culprit. So a weapon with blood group is equally important, and then there are different surfaces. Wall could be a part. A person died and he did this thumb, like handprint there with blood. Then that's also important. A lot of time, people when they are killed, they try writing notes on wall using blood stains. That's also important because you need to figure out whether that blood is of the killed person or someone else tried writing it. So forensic biology is a big discipline and it helps us a lot. An incredibly green area of vegetation among an area of less green vegetation would be very suspicious to a forensic botanist because there could be chances that there is a zone which has some amount of vegetation, and then there is a specific place in that zone which has a far better vegetation, more green. It's more green. It's greener. In that case, it could be a point of suspicion, a suspicious point because when a person dies, body deteriorates, manure, better vegetation. So if you find that a place with not so good vegetation has some green zone, then it could be suspicious because it might have a body underneath, which is giving manure to the plants. So, as a forensic biologist, you can become an expert in because you cannot work in all the fields. You have to choose your specific field. So, you can do DNA analysis, you can be a DNA expert, you can do forensic anthropology, you can be an expert in that where you uh, go to the human remains, skulls, all that. Then we have forensic pathology where we try finding out the probable cause of death using pathology related tests. Then entomology is the study of when we deal with insects. So when I was giving the moth example, it was a part of forensic entomology. Forensic botany is what we'll be doing today. That's why I gave you the whole idea how forensic science goes, how we found out forensic biology, and how we'll move ahead with forensic botany. Because forensic biology itself has different disciplines. We have zoology, we have DNA, we have anthropology, we have biological chemistry, where you use the principles of biochemistry, proteins, enzymes, all that principles, which are also equally relevant. And now we'll be talking more about forensic botany, which is nothing but using the principles of botany, using the science related to plants in finding out relevant evidences so that they can be admissible in court and I can find out who the culprit is. So it's the utilization of the plant sciences in matters related to law. We have to orient ourselves to law. We cannot move around. We cannot work for something else. You have to do something that involves law. You have to prove the relevance of the evidence. It should be related to law. Then only it will be considered as part of forensic science. And we use plants and plant products. Not only plants, but the products like pollen grains are also equally important. Leaflets, roots, everything is important. Everything works as an evidence to help solve crimes like murder, like kidnapping. We'll be discussing all the cases. And it also helps you in determining the victim's cause of death. You may find a particular type of plant extract inside the stomach of a person, and you can know he died because of that poisonous plant. Forensic botany is similar to DNA fingerprinting because plants are itself unique. Every plant is unique. Plant material is unique. It's often unique to certain ecological areas or plant species. There are few specific areas where you found a particular kind of species. We do have a kind of species of plant that grows specifically in that area. So that makes that area unique and that makes that area relevant as an evidence. The evidences that the plants hold include season because we have those annual growth rings, so you can know which season it was when the death happened. If it's a winter season, if it's a summer season, using those rings. You can have geographical location by those particular species of plants that you found, and then during the timeline when we're discussing that when the person was buried. It around, revolves around that. The case study that we discussed, the first case study that we discussed was also this because we found out about the grave using the plant leaves. Now, how forensic botany was introduced into forensic science, how people realized that plants are criminal cases. To use forensic botany was the famous 1935 trial of Bruno Hoffman, who was accused and later convicted of kidnapping and murdering the son of Charles and Annie Morrow. Charles is a famous aviator hero. The botanical evidence presented in the case centered on a homemade wooden leg. So what happened? The child of Charles was kidnapped, and at the place of kidnapping, the analyst could find a wooden ladder. The ladder, the wood of that ladder was specific to Bruno because it was a homemade. Bruno had it in his attic. At his rooftop, he had those wooden ladders. So when they had Bruno as the suspect, to prove that he was the person who kidnapped and killed the son of Charles, they used this wooden ladder as an evidence. So if the ladder of the wooden and the wood found at Bruno's attic are same, if they are anatomically same, they are morphologically same, then it means that Bruno was involved in the crime. And this is what happened. After extensive investigation, the plant anatomist Arthur Coiler, who is an anatomist specialist, he showed that parts of ladder were made from wooden planks that were taken from Hoffman's floor, as I discussed. And then Arthur, the wood technologist. So if you are skilled in wood technology, that's also important. Everything is important. So Arthur, who is a wood technologist, he provided three lines of plant anatomical evidences. He analyzed the wood and he found that the wood belongs to his place. We cannot just go with morphology, we need to go with anatomy. So he studied the anatomy of the wood. He found that both anatomies are kind of similar, which led to the conviction of Hoffman. And Collier traced parts of the ladder wood from its meal source to a lumberyard near the kidnapper's home to faint machine planning marks even before the suspect was. Even when the suspect was not known, even when Hoffman was not the suspect, he couldn't find out because of the wood. Because Hoffman had that wood specifically in his attic, and no one in that zone, no one other in that zone had that. So the wood worked as a witness. After his arrest, Collier demonstrated by wood anatomical comparisons that one of the side rails of the ladder previously had been part of a floorboard in Hopkins' attic. Finally, he established that Hopkins' hand plane had been used to dress the edges of several ladder parts. First evidence was this rail, next evidence was the edge, and then using this testimony, we could establish that Hoffman is the person behind this kidnapping and murder case and was convicted. So the first case study involves the analysis of wood and how it led us to the whole field of botany, forensic botany. There are two very important fields related to forensic botany, which are used really, they are really used nowadays. They have been used really often. One is limnology and one is palynology. So I'll be focusing on these two fields because they play a major role in forensic science. plant as a whole is important, but limnology and palynology is something that most of the experts try to focus on. So limnology involves diatoms, and I hope you all are aware about what are diatoms, but I'll be trying to give you a brief about it. These are unicellular photosynthetic autotrophic organisms. They are unicellular, so we can call them photosynthetic. They are photosynthetic. That's why we can call them uh, plants. They are autotrophic organisms that have characteristic structure fistules comprising two theca silica cellulose. So they have these unique silica walls, which has some unique patterns, which helps us in finding out which diatom was there. The cell walls construction of diatom is known as fistule. The cell walls are constructed in such a way that they give you a soapbox-like structure, and every cell wall, every species has a characteristic pattern on the cell walls. It consists of thin overlapping shells fitting into each other just as a soapbox. And depending on the shape of fistule, depending upon the soapbox, the diatoms are subdivided into centrals and pinnales, depending on their symmetry. Centrals are radially symmetrical, pinnales are bilaterally symmetrical. Now, the important thing is that there are around 2 lakh species of diatoms, and still every species is unique, just like fingerprint. And we are yet to discover more. There are more species that has not been founded yet. Diatoms generally range in size of 2 to 200 micrometers, so you need a microscope to observe them. Where do we use the diatom study? I'll be disclosing that soon. These are composed of silica cell wall, and the siliceous wall can be highly patterned with a variety of pores. There are ribs, there are pores, there are minute spines, ridges, and elevations. The patterns, the whole pattern can be used because one diatom may have an elevation at some place, the other may have an elevation at other place of the body. So it can be used to delineate the gender and species. We can uniquely categorize them. Since diatoms vary on the basis of morphology and taxonomy characteristics on a particular habitat, so it is possible to find out the location and site of growth. So diatoms play a major role in the case of droning when a person, with whether a person droned, whether a person tried committing suicide, or whether someone tried pushing, or someone tried disguising other crime using drone. So it's very easy to establish that the person was drone. You can stab a person, you can choke a person, you can throttle, you can hang, and then you can push the person into water, and you can claim that he was drone. And no one would ever know because you found the body inside the water. So it's very easy to claim that the particular case was of droning. But how can we characterize whether it was a droning case or not? The diatoms will help you there. So the uniqueness lies in siliceous wall. The silica wall is really important when it comes to forensics. It's virtually inert and indestructible, which means you will always have them around. So after the organism's death, the silica parts remain. So even if the diatom is dead, you will have the silica wall. The silica parts provide information for the classification of these diverse organisms. So before talking about droning, I'll like to give you a brief about how we use it. So diatoms are used to specify the droning cases in such a way that imagine a person was thrown or someone tried to push him into the water in water body A. Why the police, when they investigated, they found the person in water body. Now the police may think that he died in water body B, and he may start suspecting the people who live near water body B because no one knows that the person died in water body A. So to establish that, what we do, we take the viscera, the internal organs like bone marrow, like lungs, and there are many internal organs, and we take them and we analyze the different diatoms found in it. So if I found diatom, some combination of diatom like ABC, and I know that ABC diatom, this combination is not found in water body B. Water body B might have a combination XYZ, but I found ABC. It means that it has to be a case of a water body which has this ABC combination, and water body A might be the only water body with that combination. So I can establish where the person died. I can establish that water using that atom. It's also part of forensic botany. So there could be a unique diatom, there could be a diatom that is specifically found in water body A, or there could be a unique combination of diatom. That it happens. Not all the diatom combinations are same. They are unique to some extent. You'll find ABC in one zone, XYZ in one zone, because we have so many species around to land. So we use them to prove where the body was found, and we use them to prove whether the droning was antemortem or postmortem. These two terms are really important when it comes to forensic science. Antemortem means that the crime has happened before the death of the person. While postmortem means it happened after the death. By that I mean, if a person has hanged himself and then he died, it's antemortem because he hanged, he committed the crime, and then he died. While postmortem means I stabbed someone, a person was stabbed, and then to disguise the police agency, I hanged him. That's postmortem because he first died and then I committed the hanging crime. So antemortem means it happened before the death, postmortem means it happened after the death. So we can prove whether the person was drowned before his death, which means he drowned and died, or postmortem, which means someone killed him by any means and then he pushed him into the water to show that he died because of drowning. He didn't know how to swim, so he died to show that. So, in this legal aspects, diatom test plays a very important role to ascertain the cause of death. How? We'll see. So, therefore, in drowning related death, a correlation has to be established between the diatoms extracted from the organ samples and the water samples collected. It should be seen, which was the example of water body A and B. It has to be seen. The diatoms combination found in the body and the water body should be seen. So diatoms were first detected in lung fluid by Hoffman. He started detecting that when a person was drowned, he could find diatoms in his body, in his lung. And then he could establish this fact that whenever a person will drown, he will have diatoms. Inge successfully detected diatoms in blood and parenchymal organs and demonstrated that diatoms could enter into the circulation through lungs. So we are right now seeing what are the different organs where you can find diatoms when it is antemortem drowning, when the person was drowned and then he died. And diatoms were detected in bone marrow by Tamasaka. So we have right now we have lungs, we have bone marrow, and the blood circulation. Korovsky, in his study, showed that presence of diatoms in organs and bone marrow is indication of antemortem inhalation of water during drowning. And from that point of time, we have started using diatoms test to establish whether it was antemortem drowning or postmortem drowning. When a person gets thrown in water containing diatoms, then due to expiration of water, they get entered into the lungs. So the person drowned, he will try inhaling and exhaling. He will try surviving. The body will try taking oxygen. The body will never allow the person to die. It keeps on trying so that it can find some source of oxygen. So it will inhale, it will exhale, and diatoms will enter through the nose. Through the nose, it keeps on entering into the body, the circulation, the trachea, and because of water, because of the force of water, at some point there are few pores that form. And because of those pores, it enters alveoli, it enters bronchi, and then lungs. Bone marrow is considered to be the best as it proves the hypothesis of antemortem drowning. So bone marrow is still reliable because sometimes it could be there that the person was killed and then it was sent to the water. He was pushed into the water, which was postmortem drowning, and somehow the diatoms entered the nose, but they won't enter alveoli because the person is not inhaling. So they may enter nose, they may enter they may enter trachea, but they won't enter alveoli. So bone marrow is important, lungs is important, and there are more internal organs where you can find the diatoms. So why diatoms are important? To establish where the person died and to establish whether it was antemortem or postmortem. So diatom, a part of botany, will help you in finding out the evidences related to it. And then further investigation that can take. Then we have another important field related to forensic botany, which is palynology. Palynology is the study of pollens and spores. And when you use this study to establish who was the suspect, who was the culprit, and you present it in front of court, it becomes forensic palynology. It has been a part of forensic toolkit since 1959, when the analysis of pollen and spores were first practiced in relation to a forensic investigation in Austria. It started from there. A man had gone missing during a trip down the Danube River. Another man with a motive to kill him was arrested and charged with his murder. However, there was no body and not enough evidence to build a case. A part of muddy boots belonging to the defendant were discovered, and penologist Wilhelm Klaus was called upon to analyze them. Whenever there has been cases like these, cases which are tricky to solve, we need some really good experts. That's why skills are important. If you're skilled enough to analyze a wood and tell who was the killer, if you're skilled enough to analyze the muddy boots and tell from where place it belongs to, then only you can help the LEA people. So what he did, he could find a pollen. He could find pollen from modern spruce, willow, and alder trees. Alder trees. These three combination pollens he could find, as well as 20 million year old fossil shapely pollen grains. Because we know that pollen grains always stay there because of their hard cell wall, which had eroded from exposed sediment of Miocene age. From that time, the pollen was still there. So we found of these pollen grains around the body foot of that person who was convicted. And to find the body, they found that person had these muddy boots with these four pollen grains. And then they analyze which place has these four combination of plants. They find out the place and then they dig into it and they find the dead. There was only one small area near Vienna that fitted all these characteristics, and they could find the bottle from it. So they digged into it and they found the bottle. In 1995, in the set Peterson Stampa area, which is this case study is very important related to forensic science. It helps us in knowing the methodology, the thought process of the analyst, how he tackled the case. So in 1995, in the St. Petersburg, Tampa area, there was a case that had every agency involved. Every agency, by that we mean every discipline of forensic science. The cleaning people were cleaning up the side of an interstate. They were racking, and all of a sudden, a skull bounced out. Part of anthropology. They called a law enforcement agency and they started finding other bones, but they could hardly find all the bones because it clearly means that it has been dismantled, so you may not be able to find all the remains. So when you try doing that, it's important to try to find all the remains, which is difficult when it's been a long time. A skull can help you, different body remains can help you in finding out the gender as well. You can find whether it was a female, whether it was a male. To some extent, you can find the age of the person, but the remains could not be found. So, forensic anthropologist was involved in the investigation, but he could not give them any time since then. He could not do that. When they finally had a suspect, the suspect said, "How do you know that lady did not die long after I left India?" This case study is exactly what we saw in the beginning. It's similar, but now how pollen grains helped us will be looking into that. How botany helped us. When they finally had a suspect, the suspect said, "How do you know that lady did not die long after I left the area?" So timing became critical at this point, and there was no evidence that could be collected from anthropology. So as they were working in the case, they did collect pieces of the vegetation, some of it growing through bones. Again, they found that vegetation was growing through bones because the mass could have deteriorated, but the bones were there, and they could see that the vegetation has passed it. It has grown through it, which means I can conclude that the plants, the vegetation started growing at some point when the body was already deteriorated. There was no mass. So finally, a couple of pieces of plant that had grown through bones were found that could be positively identified. We could identify the species of those plants. The expert could age the branches by the annual rings again. They could find that since the plants started growing after the deterioration happened, they found out the annual rings, they counted the number, they did the whole science around it, and they found out the age of the tree. which kind of means that the body has to be older than that plant. So approximate time of the body had been there, could be found how long the body was there. That time could be found. It could be true that the person was killed way back and then he was buried. It could be true, but we could find the burial time, which we discussed in the beginning. So it had been there before the suspect. The suspect was Franklin. Before he left, the body was there, and we could identify that if the body is there before the suspect left the place, it means that the suspect is the culprit. He was tried and convicted of first degree murder in 2002 and received the death penalty. So the whole motive of this whole presentation was to establish how forensic botany is relevant to law enforcement agency and why is it important. And now I would like to take questions. If there are any questions, I would like to take this question and answer this question. Hello?
Thank you, Ms. Shanika, for giving us such a wonderful description of the field of forensics. I am Divya Agarwal and I have completed my bachelor's in botany just a few weeks ago from Shivaji College. And getting to know about this rather unspoken field of biology was very, very insightful. And just like me, I'm sure our participants were also able to gain some new information today. I was extremely intrigued by listening to so many real life cases that you told us about. Your talk made us realize that forensic science also carries a lot of career potential. So, with that, we can go ahead and take up some questions from the chat box.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Deepak.
Okay, so we have a question. Nisa has asked that she's a BSc zoology student, and being such from such a field, is it possible to pursue forensic sciences as a career?
Yes, it's possible. I do have colleagues who have done BSc zoology, but the thing would be that she would be restricted to zoology, forensic zoology, which means will be restricted to forensic science, but you can pursue specialization in forensic biology. You can pursue in other fields, but then there is one thing which is rules and regulations. So when we most of the people who want to pursue this field wants to help in solving criminal cases, and at that time, if you want to work with government, they do see your bachelor's, and if you are a zoology bachelor, then they would prefer that you go for forensic biology, and if you are planning to go for forensic biology, then it's perfect. You can definitely go with that.
Thank you. I think that solves quite a lot of queries. The next question is from Rashi, and she asks that, ma'am, it was mentioned vegetation could grow bones. How is it possible, and what is the mechanism or science behind it?
Sorry, could you repeat? Vegetation code?
Grow bones. I think she means vegetation could grow on bones.
Okay. So what happens when a person dies? The mass starts deteriorating. It becomes manure. It does not stay there for long. But as we know, the skull, the skeleton, the bones will be there. So by growing through bones, I meant that when the body starts deteriorating, the mass starts deteriorating, there will be a point when there will be no mass around it. There will be only the bones left. And if you find a plant which is growing around that bone, it means that the plant started growing at the point when the bones were there. There was no mass because the mass deteriorated. We only had bones, and from that point, the plant started growing. So by growing through bones, I mean that there were bones, and then it was surrounded by the vegetation.
Okay,
So
so the next question is from Shubhangi, and she's asking us that you have completed your bachelor's in life sciences, but we do not study computer science in that. So, how did you end up in computer forensics?
yeah, that's a great question. So, as I said, that we have the rules that you cannot work with government, but nowadays forensic science, because of the boon it's receiving, and I would like to tell you all that right now a bill has been passed in Lok Sabha which involves the building of more forensic science universities. So initially, we only had few government institutes like NICFS, my institute, like Gujarat Forensic Science University, but now these are turning into National Forensic Science University. So we'll be having a centralized university which will only deal with forensic science, just like we have engineering universities, MBA universities. So coming back to the question, I did life sciences, and then when I was doing forensic sciences, I was kind of interested in computers, but I knew I might not be able to enter the government, the government forensic science laboratories. But the private institutions, the private firms do not go for that. They'll always go for your skills. So what I did was during lockdown, I was enrolled in Stanford University's course where I started learning about Python. It was a revolutionary course because they first time introduced this course online that too free for everyone for the people who were selected. So only 10% people were selected, and I was one of them. And then I learned coding, which gave me a strong skill in coding and which helped me in claiming that I can do computers because I have some kind of information related to that. I already have a base in that. But still, if I want to work in government, I may not be able to do that because you cannot directly get into forensic science laboratories, but you can work with CBI, you can work with different organization as an analyst. They will give you the option if you are skilled. You need to have skill. So I'll encourage you all to get into internships, do as many internships as you can do because I didn't do internships in my bachelor and I feel that I couldn't get much experience because if you do 2 months internship, you're getting 2 months experience. You can reflect that in your resume. So when I did online internships, I could claim that I did 11 months. I did have 11 months of experience because of those internships, which were totally online. So take advantage of everything being online and do as many internships as you can do. Go for trainings, go for webinars because you will get different kinds of certificates which you can again reflect that I did attend this webinar. That's why I know about this. It will help. So you can enter computers, you can enter any field, but government tools may not allow you to work in FSL. But if you're sure you want to work for private firm, you can definitely go.
Okay, there's an add-on question from Shubhangi. Is there any entrance exam that we need to give to do masters in forensics?
Yeah, there is. I will prefer that you all go for government institutes first. Try going for NICFS, which is one of the best colleges related to forensic science. So one is National Institute of Criminology and Forensic Science. For that, you will need to give IPU CE because it's under IPU right now. But from next year, it will be under NFS. So it may have a different entrance exam. Then we have Gujarat Forensic Science University, which also has an exam. So if you want to go into government universities, you will need to give an entrance exam, which you will need to search. Target your university. I only had one target. Either I want to go for NICFS or I'll go for JNU, but some other. I did get admitted in both. I got selected in both, but then I wanted to do forensic science, so I selected this field, this NICFS. So you will need to give exams, and there are limited seats. Only 30 seats are there all around India and world. So there are entrances, and yeah.
The next question is a repetition of what we've asked earlier. So Pranay asks that what are the career aspects in forensic science after BSc Biotechnology?
Great. So after BSc Biotechnology, you can, there is a rule, if you have studied a subject for more than 2 years, you can do that. So if you have studied biology in your bachelor's for more than 2 years, you can go for that specialization. If you have studied chemistry for more than 2 years, you can go for that specialization. If you have studied physics for 2 years, you can go for that. I did life sciences, so I had an advantage because I could go for zoology, botany, and chemistry because I had all these three. So if you have studied for more than 2 years, you can go into that field if you want to work with government. But if you are fine with private firm, then every field is open. But there is one thing that I would like to highlight. Do not think that if you will complete your master's in forensic science, then you'll have a lot of people waiting for you to give you jobs. There is no scope in any field, and there is a lot of scope in every field. you will need to be skilled. You will need to skill yourself. You will need to work. It doesn't mean if you get into a government university, you'll get placements because everyone at the end wants to work in the field of their interest. So if you want to do that, start skilling yourself from now. Start getting into things that will help you in getting exposure to your field of interest. Start doing it from now.
We have another question from Barkat, and she says that she has already completed her MSc Botany. So, can she go for forensic science now?
Yeah, she can. She can. If she has done a BSc in science, she can go for MSc as well. But I would like to highlight one thing. If you are interested in FSL, if you want to work in forensic science laboratories, the place where all the forensic analysts work with government, you can do that with your MSc degree in botany as well. You can work in as a forensic biologist with MSc in botany as well. They do recruit people who have masters in pure science, including MSc zoology, botany, chemistry. You can directly start working, but you will need to give the interview. So it's not important that you have to do forensic science because you know the botany principles already. So all you need is you just need to present it in code. So you can start working as an analyst from now as well, even if you don't have a master's specifically in forensic science.
The next question is rather filmy and it's a really long one. So, Abhishek has asked that in Sri Devi ji's death case, she died due to accidental drowning in a bathtub and she was reportedly drunk. So, normally water is found outside the bathtub, but in her case, it was not there. So, keeping all the murder things aside, is it really possible for somebody to die in a bathtub without the water being poured outside?
There have been different speculations, and yeah, I also have my own speculation about it. But if the analysts, the experts who have given this testimony that it was a suicide, then we have to agree to that. No one can deny that because you need to see the body to analyze, to come to a conclusion. No one knows whether there was water or not. We cannot trust others. We cannot trust. It's the doubter thing. We cannot trust what others say. We need to be there. Every analyst has to be at the scene of crime to tell you what could be happening. What if there was a broken glass, someone entered and did that? You never know. So you have to be at the scene of crime to give a conclusion. We cannot give a testimony on the basis of what we have heard in media. So no comments could be made on that. But as you said, the bathtub thing, I would say if the bathtub is full, then the water should be out. But then the water could be evaporated also. Who knows? But if it's halfly filled, then the water might not be out.
Okay, Shubhangi has one more question. She's saying that it is very difficult for life sciences students to get into internships. So, can you give them any tricks to get such exposure in the science field?
Great question. Yeah, it's difficult. It's pretty difficult. But I have realized one thing. During lockdown, a lot of small startups are coming up with different kind of internships. You may not get a direct internship in life sciences, but there might you may not get a direct internship in biology because it's a lab oriented field. But I could get internships in computers because I did a lot of online research. You have to do that. Enroll yourself to internshala. Keep giving those filters. You want an internship in biology. If not biology, at least you can try doing article writing internships because it will help you in research. I did an article writing internship and for a month, and I wrote some 12 articles, and I learned a lot about law because that's also related to my. So you may not get direct internships online, but you can do article writing internships. They do exploit because I think they will ask you to work in free, but I think they you can add it as an experience. You learn something, so go for it. Because anyways, we will be chilling at house, so it's better to be productive than just sitting around. So go for online internships at least now, and once everything opens up, you can try asking labs if there are any labs or pharmaceutical companies or private labs like truth labs, all that things that do offer internships to people because they'll get one person who is ready to work for them, so they will give you internships. But search, keep searching on Google. It uh, at the end, keep going through all the 10 pages on Google. You'll find something there. There has to be. But I was not aware enough when I was in bachelor's. That's why I'm saying that you should definitely do that because it will give you additional experience, a lot of experience that you can show off later.
The
Yeah.
next question is from Saran and a similar question from Yogesh as well. They're asking, can biotech, BTech students get into forensic department?
Yes, I do have a classmate who has done BTech in biotechnology. Not biotechnology, I think some other field, but he's in BTech and he's in forensic science. You can do that. Forensic science just wants you to score more than 60% in your bachelor's. It doesn't have any other criteria, and you should have studied biology, zoology, and chemistry. I think is not compulsory, but bio is kind of compulsory. And biotech does involve biology, so people from MSc Biotechnology are also there in forensic science. You can definitely enroll yourself into it, but look out if you want to go for MTech or MSc. Always make rationalized decisions. Do not go into forensic science just because it sounds interesting. You'll get a chance to work in the field of forensic science even without MSc in forensic science. If you're interested in zoology, only zoology, then go for MSc zoology. Do what interests you. If you like that, I want to go for MTech, biotech, go for that. You can still work in FSM. But if you want to explore this field of forensic science, then yeah, you can go for MSc forensic science where you learn about all the fields that I told you in the beginning. You can go for that. They'll accept you. No restrictions for BTech biotechnology.
It looks like we've covered all our questions. So thank you so much, Ms. Shanika, for addressing all the queries. I would
Thank
now
you
like
so
to
much.
request Dr. Divya Mohanty to take over.
Okay, thank you, Divya. Actually, I was not able to unmute myself, so I was waiting. Thank you, Divya. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Shanika. We appreciate your efforts and sincerity with which you have come out today for this talk. And in such a short time, returning to your alma mater and giving a talk on such short notice requires a lot of courage. And you have done very well in that today. You defended the questions superbly. I must tell all the participants here she was a very quiet but definitely sincere and obedient student during her graduation years. So I've never heard her talk this much, but it gives me immense pride and happiness to see this side of hers. So the main purpose for inviting you, definitely in addition to the exposure in the field, was to give students an overall experience in the summer training for their all-round development. We are trying to give some hands-on training also in this virtual platform. So wanted to have a session on career counseling as well, definitely on the lines of the training, so that we don't deviate from the topic. I'm sure it must have benefited some students at least with ideas of different career avenues, and from someone who's doing it herself, it has a better impact. So, Shanika, your career has just begun, and we wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for coming, for taking out time from your job and coming out here and guiding the students as well. And I think, Shanika, one question is there. I hope you don't have any issue to answer that.
No,
It
no,
has
ma'am.
just
Thank you
come.
so much, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me. I felt it was great for me to know what everyone else is thinking about this field, and I really enjoyed introducing everyone to my.
No, no, we could have given this the talk ourselves also, but was definitely one thing is that we want to listen to our students. Secondly, somebody who's actually into that field, when that person tells, that has a different impact. And thirdly, if sometimes some things are give leave a better impact, in the sense that students will see actually this person has just completed her life sciences 2 years back, and how she has shifted, as there were some questions related to that. So we understand at this point, when aap log jahan pe bhi sab hain, you all would be having so many questions for you related to your career and future perspective. So we would like all of you to have a successful life as such. So Yukta has asked Shanika that computer science was one of my core subject in class 11th and 12th. Can I go for computer forensics after my BSc?
Yes, definitely. Since you have done 11th, you had computer science in 11th, 12th, so you will have a better, I'll say you'll have an advantage. But I would like to know, did you complete your BSc with computer as well? Because if yes, then she can work in FSL as well.
uh, Yukta, beta, can you unmute and say, speak for yourself?
Okay, I think
She's
she
done
has
BSc
applied BSc
botany.
botany. Okay.
Yes.
But yes, she can go for forensic science and she can work in private firms because as of now, the government demands to have computer as a subject in bachelor's at least for 2 years. But she can work in private firms because I didn't even study computers in 11, 12, and still I'm working. So Yukta can also work for sure.
Okay, I hope Yukta that answers your question now. Okay then. So thank you to all of you. Thanks to Shanika, and hope you all have a good day. And we'll begin the session in the coming week now. So hopefully all of you have a good weekend. Okay, yes, definitely. For the participants, we'll have the test tomorrow. Okay, as we had last week. All right. So probably host can now leave the meeting. Thanks, Shanika, once again, beta.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.